Hi everyone, Sam Quentin with Sinopa Publishing, right here in Frankfort, Kentucky. So, where have I been? Right in 2024, early part of 2024, I announced an effort to try and post a video to the channel at least once a week and get up to once a day. We did not meet that goal. In fact, it's been several months since I posted any video like this. The older videos I put out have been like content like time lapse videos of some of the artists working on current Sonoma projects. So what happened? Well, I got very sick in the summer. I got bad, not really a bad bout, but I got a bout of COVID that really kicked my butt, followed by a really bad bout of influenza. Ye old flu. And I basically stayed sick for a lot of the summer and was slow to recover. Um, got just one thing after the other, sinus infections, um, all kind of upper respiratory stuff, basically. Really, really slowed me down. So it's now almost the end of January. It's January 30th when I'm recording this. Um, 2024 also saw the loss of several family members in my family, and we are currently expecting a very dear relative of ours to pass any day now. So that's been difficult, to say the least. But the people who love us want us to continue on, and so we do. We persist. We endure. We strive to make bigger and better, and to improve ourselves in our work and our craft. And so we do. I will continue to produce the best comics and role-playing game books I know how. I'm going to try and make sure that I get my schedule straightened out. In the coming weeks, I'm expecting a few things to happen. I have a dear friend who's going through a medical issue. I'll be helping to take care of him. He's my neighbor. He and I have been friends since 1990 or earlier. And he's one of my best friends in the whole world. But he's having a pretty major procedure tomorrow. And then I will be helping him out around his place through the time he's recovering, which is expected to be at least several weeks. So I will be fitting that into my schedule along with the full-time job and the single-parent duties and all the crowdfunding work and all the writing and everything. And I will try to make time to fit videos in to entertain and to inform as best as I can. Now, I still don't know anything about editing, so I'm not going to try. I'm just going to shoot this in one go, and we'll see how it works out. So stick with me to the end, because I think there's some things that you're going to want to know, some things you want to find out about. The next thing we're going to talk about is something that's been on everyone's lips these last couple of weeks, and that is that Diamond Distribution has filed Chapter 11 bankruptcy. And by now, it's probably old hat to a lot of you. You've heard different takes from industry leaders, industry professionals, from writers and artists, and people who've worked at Marvel and at DC, and people at Image, and all the little smaller companies that still directly distribute through them, and a few tiny creators like yourself, like myself rather, I guess I should say, who haven't directly distributed through Diamond, but still impacts us in a lot of ways. Now, Antarctic Press was kind enough to re-release Tibby and Her Time-Traveling Psychedelic Mushrooms, issue 1. And we got that out and finally on shelves in November. That was really cool. Really, really enjoyed that. But that was our first time on the shelves through main distribution. And main distribution seems about to change pretty drastically. Now, I do not have a crystal ball. I do not know or pretend to know what the future for Diamond is exactly. While Chapter 11 bankruptcies have a very low recovery rate, it is possible that Diamond recovers. And if so, what does that mean? Well, it means that there's still an opportunity for a lot of small press folks and indie creators to get their work out on the shelves. But to do that, there has got to be a few things that are holding true. We need places for those books to be sold. And the comic shops, really my favorite location, there are less than 2,000, by the estimates I've seen, I guess I should clarify, lead me to believe there are less than 2,000 active comic shops in North America. Okay. So getting books translated into other languages like Japanese, French, Italian, Portuguese, German, Dutch, important, Korean, and some other languages as well, I think is very important. I think that the expense of getting stuff translated and lettered from English to another language is often very challenging, especially if you're just trying out and figuring out. Because there really isn't a handbook on how to make your small press business grow. There is people who say, you should do this and you should do this, and those are little steps. But business tends to be more than just one or two steps. It's not like a lemonade stand where it's, make lemonade, sell lemonade, right? There are a lot of steps that go into that for making comics and such, especially if you are trying to do it with some degree of commercial success. So in order for a recovery of Diamond to really successfully facilitate small press, we'll have to see books getting into a wider range of markets. We're going to need to see solutions to distribution problems. And I hate to say this, but on the other hand, I don't hate to say this. We're going to need for Diamond to make good on the money they owe. Now, bankruptcy protection is there for a reason. I'm not trying to invalidate that. But what I am going to point out is that a lot of the smaller companies cannot take the financial hit of not having one or two press runs worth of product not get paid for. We can't say, oh, hey, we're owed $4,000 for, a little press run and we don't get paid. Well, $4,000 for a lot of us is enough to cripple our operations. So for the guys like me and Max DeVille and Larry Higgins of Niobe and Tyler Carpenter of Draw and Talk, and the list is on and on and on. Basically, think of your favorite, small crowdfunding creators, right? Guys who are typically funding under $50,000, right? They are going to really, really need to see support in their crowdfunding efforts during this difficult time. And it doesn't have to be more money per individual pledge. Just more people coming into the crowdfunding market will do the trick. So here's hoping we can pull that off. But the other thing too, aside from Diamond paying what it owes, although granted that's going to take months because a lot of it's in bankruptcy. Going forward, I would like to see them actually paying upon receipt of product. I know, ironic, right? when you're taking and distributing books like that, and you've had something like this happen where this history of not paying people has really hit so many people so hard, I think that asking to get paid upon receipt is not that big of an ask. It'll build trust. It'll help stabilize the creator side of things for their finances, because believe me, a lot of creators are feeling this. And it also shows commitment to distributing the books in the future. So that's just my suggestion for that. But the other thing that I think has to be true is in comic shops, they need to be around still. And these next few months are going to be very, very difficult. Because regardless of what you think of the sales numbers going up, going down, storylines being popular or unpopular, when it comes down to it, your owners of your comic shop locally, they've got rent and electricity to pay. They've got families to feed. They depend upon those sales coming through their store, whether it's comics or Funko Pops or games or other collectibles or original art or whatever pop culture items they're selling. They depend upon that revenue to keep the lights on and keep the doors open. So, for all of you who are still watching this, here's my second suggestion. Take and make sure that if you have a comic pull list, get down to your comic shop and pay for your pull list. All right? Help our comic shops stay in business, because the next few months they're going to really be hurting. And if we're going to preserve the comic shops that we have and encourage others to open in the future, then they have to have a degree of success. Now, that's really hard in the economy over the last, say, 10 years to really make money in selling comics and role-playing game books, especially through the course of the pandemic. We lost a lot of good shops during those years. But the thing about commerce is that those shops, when they find the products that sell and they supply that need, they'll thrive. But our tradition of having pull lists and people maybe being a little slow to pick those up, we need to lean into that and make sure that we're paying and picking up those products. So the short version of that is make sure you go take care of your pull list, guys. And if you can, do it this week. Your shop owners will appreciate it. Now, there are a lot of creators who are trying to move their books into other companies. Those spaces are going to get very crowded. And again, I'm talking about like companies like trying to get their books distributed under a Boom label or an Image label. Some company that already has distribution set up. Nothing wrong with that. I think it's a smart move. The one thing I would say to all my fellow creators and small press guys, don't expect that to happen overnight, right? Now, if you have a title like Carmen America, right, with Tim Lin and them, that could probably do really well anywhere. To be perfectly honest, it's a really good book, has a great deal of appeal, and I mean, it would probably do just as well anywhere, right? As those people are being onboarded into those new networks, it's going to take a lot of manpower for companies that are designed to be lean and mean, because they have to be lean and mean. They can't have extraneous extraneous labor costs affecting their bottom line, because there's just not a lot of margin in those comics unless you're seeing 60,000-70,000 sales per title, and that's not very common anymore. And you can see one of the reasons. I mean, we distribute primarily to comic shops in this business model, and with less than 2,000 in North America, trying to sell 60,000 copies of anything is a tall order, right? So be mindful of that. Another thing I think that would help Diamond or whom really Lunar or Penguin Random House, and Penguin Random House has been already been doing this for decades, but is to make sure you're not just selling into one particular niche market. And by that I mean don't limit your distribution to your comic shops. Now, I have suggested on various podcasts and streams and YouTube interviews that a pretty nice way to do that is to have one cover that you just release specifically through comic shop distribution channels, maybe another cover that you're releasing to like your bookstore chains or to Walmart or Kroger or what have you, or in my case to dispensaries and liquor store chains and tattoo parlors. Um, to get those books out into the world, to give them a chance to be bought by potential new fans. And all business has risk. Anyone who tells you that it doesn't is lying or they're a fool. So yeah, it's risky. It's risky experimenting in new markets when other people have abandoned those markets decades ago or never got into them in the first place. So by the way, if you're in Cincinnati and going to get a tattoo, look for a spinner rack with Sonoma Publishing titles on there. If you're in one of the ones that carries us, pick us up and enjoy it. Or if you're anywhere where you see Sonoma Publishing comics, pick it up. We appreciate it. The Diamond bankruptcy, if it goes through and Diamond does not survive, very much so changes the landscape for many, many companies. There are several companies that have been Diamond exclusive even after the founding of Lunar and Penguin Random House for whatever, for their reasons of their own. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. They made their decision based on their best financial judgment at the time, I'm sure. But if Diamond does fold, that really hurts them very badly. Now, can we get our titles out and into the world without a big common distributor? Well, every other retailer, other than comic shops really, typically uses a plethora of suppliers. Comic shops for decades used one, and then after the pandemic used one, two, or three. Now I think we're at least up to 4 that I know of, so hats off to my buddy Adam Watson and Comics Mainstream Distribution, who have been selling a lot of Sonoma books. Thanks, guys. Appreciate you. The thing I would mention is that trouble, if Diamond folds from this bankruptcy instead of rebounds, is going to persist for quite some time, right? You're going to see many indie comics that have been staples as indie comics on shelves for years, if not decades, vanish off a comic shop's shelves because there isn't a place to order them. You're going to see isn't a place to order them that the retailers are using, not on Penguin or not on Lunar. You're going to see some folks go to a direct-to-consumer or wholesaler route. Coffin Comics was taking the lead on this as far as the larger, more well-known entities months ago. So hats off to them. I think that there are some good arguments that if Brian and his team think it's worthwhile, he could find himself filling a very interesting role in comics if he took on, say, comics like She from Billy Tushy come to mind. Something that has a long-standing, proven track record. I think that could be a very profitable business venture for the two of them if they collaborated on that. But only time will tell. I have no reason to believe that they've talked about that. I haven't seen anything about them talking about that. But to me, it occurs that they might do business in that way and make each other a lot of money in the process and get people wonderful comics that they'll enjoy. So there's that. The Diamond bankruptcy is going to change a lot of things. For basically all of the publishers that are, smaller press that you see on comic book shelves. What it's not going to change for are for people who primarily rely on crowdfunding and selling at cons and stuff like that. That is a hard churn. Folks like me who don't get books out every month, who have different titles that are in production and maybe 5 or 6 books out a year, or Max DeVille and get 10 or 11, that kind of thing. The effort on that is intense. Your sales numbers typically are not high enough to immediately support it, and you have to generate revenue from subsequent sales and more crowdfunding. And that's fine. I mean, it works. We're usually profitable ourselves every year, so that's good. But I spend that money right back into new products. So, we'll see. Although, admittedly, in 2024, I used funds from my company to help me pay for medication for my out-of-pocket expenses and doctor's expenses. But that seemed important at the time, so that's cool. I'm all over the place here, guys. Stick with me. For folks like me, and I imagine for Tyler Carpenter, Larry Higgins, Max DeVille, and Johnny Reed, Sam Johnson. Oh God, the list goes on and on and on. All these people who are working so hard with their crowdfunding. I think that they're going to be okay. Now, I think that crowdfunding is going to get a lot more crowded. I think you're going to see a lot of companies who had not been utilizing it that much start stepping into it more aggressively. And those companies who have been publishing creator-owned titles, I think you're going to see them looking more towards, hey, what is your book? Is it something we can sell to our market? And we may see stuff like people just opening up their own shops, knocking off Brian Pulido, for direct-to-consumer and direct-to-wholesaler. I think for comic shops, that's going to be a little difficult because if you've got a lot of wholesalers, then trying to pick and choose is going to be a strain. The shipping costs are going to be problematic. And you're going to have to find companies that are providing product that sells off the shelf at a cost that lets them make the money that they need to flourish. And regardless of all the narrow margins, all the complaints about packaging and all the problems it takes to get into Diamond, to get into their catalog, and the costs inherent therein, and all the delays in getting your stuff into the previews magazine, and then it being ordered, and then it going out a couple months later, and then you waiting a couple months after there to get paid. The truth of the matter is that when that model worked, it did keep successful comic shops running, as long as they knew what to sell and they were selling enough of it. With that potentially going away, and if it does go away, it's going to be very hard on shop owners. So just be mindful. And I reiterate, go pick up your pull boxes, everybody. Make sure that you're supporting your local comic shop. All right. This video is, of course, way too long, but thank you for hanging out with me. We will be launching Tibby and her time-traveling psychedelic mushrooms, issue 2, end of February, early part of March. I'm working on it still, and we'll get everything finalized. But Tibby, going to 1969 to a certain music festival. We're going to have fun. It's going to be a nice, easy read. The story is again just another trip through time that our lovely MC has, and we're going to see more stories unfold episodically, issue to issue, and you'll get to know Tibby just like you get to know anyone else over time, and not just from the introduction and knowing everything about them, but a little piece at a time. Who she is, how she thinks, what's going on in her life, and some other stuff. And yeah, there's nudity in issue 2. It is not made for children, just like issue 1 is not made for children. It's designed to be fun, and I hope you guys are all enjoying it. All right. Also, check out 47 Furious Tales, Necroholic, and Reign of Ages. And look for One in a Million, which is our first all ages book and our first superhero book, which will be coming later this year. Until next time, Sam Quentin with Sinopa Publishing. Thank you very much. Have a wonderful day.